Good morning. It's Mr. Cravat. Hope everybody's doing okay this blustery Wednesday morning. Is it Wednesday? I don't know. Today we're talking about the London Blitz. We're gonna discuss Winston Churchill, um, uh, the Germans' military strategy in the battle against Britain. We are going to uh, hopefully have an opportunity to listen to one of Winston Churchill's speeches. That'll be in Google Classroom. You'll want to check that out as you're doing this assignment. So, a little to give context to the situation, September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland, and therefore that's the last straw for Great Britain. And Great Britain declares war on Germany, right? Great Britain is in the middle of the Depression. They are not in position to fight the Germans, but they have no choice now, as Hitler's not going to stop invading these other countries and violating the Treaty of Versailles. So here we go. Germany's going to bomb Great Britain, and the goal on number one of today's assignment, the goal of the Germans relentlessly bombing Great Britain is to, well, make them surrender, to break their will. The German strategy is called Blitzkrieg. They're coming in the middle of the night with their planes, and they're just bomb, 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 bomb. Hope that doesn't make anybody sick. One bomb after another. A lot of people died, obviously. The Germans were attacking basically, and also attacking British civilians. That's another thing that makes this kind of personal. So number two, why were the Germans attacking the British to begin with? Because the British had declared war on Germany, and after the invasion of Poland. And one thing to remember about all this is that nobody, in our class that we've learned so far, all the stuff that we've learned so far, nobody has ever successfully invaded Great Britain. Napoleon couldn't do it, or go even further back. The Spanish Armada wasn't able to do it. I know we talked about that. Spanish Armada wasn't able to do it. Napoleon couldn't do it. Hitler's going to join the list of people that was not able to invade Great Britain successfully. What advantage does the Blitzkrieg give the German army in their aerial attack on Great Britain? Surprise. Coming in the middle of the night, right? So the British have to figure out how they're going to counter this, right? So obviously the British have soldiers on the ground. They have planes in the air and everything fighting the Germans and all. And the issue becomes, how do we warn the people? And this is where you start to see radar being used, like the same radar that's used to track storms today. That's being used. The tornado sirens that you hear every spring and summer. Those were originally designed to warn the British that the German planes were coming. But yeah, surprise. That was the big thing. And the sirens and the radar kind of curbed that a little bit. All right, number four. How did Winston Churchill lead Great Britain through the German Blitzkrieg? Churchill is an interesting character. We can't get too in-depth, but let's just say he usually had a cigarette in one hand and a glass of scotch in the other most parts of the day. Churchill, the speech that you'll want to listen to on Google Classroom, he is probably a little drunk. Churchill had a very hard, it was very hard to understand his voice. He had kind of almost like a smoker's voice, y'all ever have an aunt or an uncle that tries to talk to you and everything, and you could tell they've been smoking since they were 12 years old and they're 75 now, right? Hey, baby, how you doing? Churchill. So, all right. So the question I'm going to ask you is, how would you and your group look to survive the London Blitz? Would you run to the shelter a mile away, or stay in your home and hope for the best, and why? I'll tell this story real quick. Stories aren't really conducive to these videos, but I'll tell this story real quick. When I was 9, I went to my class went on a field trip to listen to a motivational speaker down at the University of Tennessee at Martin. We live close to Tennessee, so it made sense to drive to Tennessee for this. And it was an anti-bullying speech, right? And the speaker was I guess, a survivor of the Holocaust, a survivor of World War II. He was German, and he had moved to Great Britain. He was like a German refugee that him and his mom had moved to Great Britain when Hitler got elected. His mom was one of the people that saw Hitler for what he was, and they left, and they went to Great Britain. Now, this guy, his first English words that he knew were "no Nazi," because that's what he had to constantly tell his classmates when they would bully him and call him a Nazi, right? So, no Nazi, no Nazi. Those were his first English words, um, because he had to defend himself. So now he told the story of the night that his neighborhood got bombed by the Germans, and he told the story of his mom. Um, his mom basically had to make a choice, right? And they could, um, when the sirens started going off, they could leave their apartment and run about 3 football fields to the shelter, right? So kind of put that in context for you, or in perspective for you. Uh, it'd be about like running from our classroom at school to the back building, right? Could you run all that way with bombs dropping in the air? Would you be willing to do that? If you knew you were going to be safe in the back building, would you take that chance and run those 3 football fields, right? Or they stay in the apartment and hide in the bathtub and hope for the best. Well, his mom wakes him up. He tells the story. His mom comes in, he hears the sirens going off. His mom grabs him and pulls him, yanks him out of bed, and they start to go out the door of their apartment. And his mom, at just a split second, all of a sudden decides to turn around. She wasn't giving any instructions. They turn around, and in a split second, and they go back to the bathtub. And they ended up surviving. The building next to them was demolished, and there were bombs that had been dropped between their apartment and the bomb shelter, and they ended up surviving. And I always just thought that was an interesting story of survival during the Blitzkrieg. This man, people had to make split-second decisions on what they were going to do. So your question on number 5, how would you and your group look to survive the London Blitz? Would you run to the shelter a mile away, or stay in your home and hope for the best, and why? These people didn't have a class period to figure these questions out. They had maybe like 30 seconds, all right, to make a split-second decision. It literally is a coin flip. So, all right, number 6, design your own evacuation plan for your family in the event that another country chooses to bomb us. Where does your family have to hide? Not everybody has a hope everybody has a bathtub. Not everybody has a basement. So hopefully if you have a basement, that's maybe what you'll choose, but some people just have under the bed. That's the only option. How can a cell phone be useful in this situation? And 5 materials you'll need for once the power is out after the bombing. I'm going to go back to the cell phone situation for a second. How many people do you think would be outside taking selfies of the bombs dropping down, or recording it on video? Take a guess. You're probably right. Actually, you're probably underestimating it, but I digress. All right, so list 5 materials you'll need for once the power is out after the bombing. 5 materials you'll need for once the power is out after the bombing. Okay, so that's up to you. 5 materials you'll need. I'll never forget when we had a tornado come when I was growing up, and we lived on a dairy farm, and it was like 5 in the morning, maybe a little bit earlier, and my sister comes in the room and yells for me to get up, and you're waking up, you're not thinking clearly, right? I grabbed the blanket and the alarm clock because I had made up my mind I was going to go back to sleep in the milk barn during a tornado, right? Obviously, that didn't happen. And so I wasn't prepared for if the power went out or if we were stuck. So something to think about. What kind of food should you keep on you? List 5 foods you'll have with you. And all I'm going to say is I'm not going to make too many suggestions, but I would keep some of the more terrible smelling stuff with you. In this case, your hot chips may work. And I'm also going to I think you should throw in beef jerky as well. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to let you try to figure out why those items should be on you in the event that you're, stuck in a basement or something. needing people to find you, or dogs for that matter. All right, let's move on. What clothes should people being bombed grab and keep with them? List 3 shirts, sweaters, jackets you would take. Their color is very important as well. Why am I telling you that the color of your clothes is important in this situation? I'm going to let you figure that out on your own. So, all right, that's all of them for today. Good lesson.